writing answers. So here, what's the difference here? It's also finding sum as we did in the previous one, but we want the sum for each student. So we want to sum up each student's test. Find and output the total mark obtained for each student. And they want us to store the sum. When I calculate the sum, in the previous example, when I worked out the total sum, I displayed it. That was the total sum. In this example, they are telling me you've got student 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, student 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, student 3, student 4, and student 5. Okay, and now here they are saying, what is this total for this guy? Get that total and store it in this 1D array. We declared a 1D array called arrSum, and it had 5 cells. So when you get this guy's total, store it in here. When you get this guy's total, student 2, then store it in there. And similarly, for each student, when you get their total, store it in this array. So that is what the task requires us to do. How is it different from the other one? The other button we just wrote summed up everything. Here we're not summing up everything, we're summing up each student. How do we go about doing something like that? Again, our rule, I want to go to each cell, therefore nested loop. So this solution is going to be similar. In fact, I'm going to draw a parallel between what I wrote here in the previous one and what I'm writing now. So if I say for R, assign the value 1 to 5 to begin. For C, assign the value 1 to 4 to begin, and sum is sum plus ARR marks. That's my accumulator. End and end. There we are. And the only statement I forgot was setting the sum. Let's leave out the average. In the previous one, we also worked out average. But if we look at this solution, remember there's my sum set to 0. And inside the loop, here's my accumulator inside both loops. And outside, this is where I displayed. This is where I displayed outside both of the loops. Okay, so here I've set my sum to 0. And here I'm accumulating. But if you draw the same analogy when we did the output, you'd remember that each time I worked with a new row, you needed to reset the str variable. So the same concept comes in here. The sum needs to be reset to 0 each time I start a new student. So I need to set my sum to 0 here. So every time R changes, the first thing it does, it comes into the loop, it resets the sum to 0, and then the C goes 4 times, summing up that row. And while I got the sum, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to wait until the loops end. So at this stage, I need to say ARR. I think the name of the array was sum. I need to store this in the 1D array. The sum that I just calculated, I want to store it in the 1D array, but now I'm a little confused. What position do I put in there? Because the first time around, it needs to be 1. The sum needs to go into cell 1. here, and then cell 2, then cell 3, then cell 4, then cell 5. So what's taking on those values? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we know that the R counter is taking on that value. So let's do a quick trace through this and let's see how that works. R is 1. R is going to be fixed at 1. Sum is set to 0. And C is going to run 4 times, right? You should get the idea now. This loop is going to go 4 times. And each time C is changing 1, 2, 3, 4, and R is fixed. So we are going to be going to these 4 cells for student 1, and it's accumulating and getting a total. So after it finishes 4 times, I come to this statement, and R is 1. So I go to cell number 1, which is here, and I store the total in cell number 1 for student 1.